Hello, and welcome to Embracing the Fight. I am Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. Embracing the Fight was created to help normalize the conversation surrounding physical and mental health issues and concerns. Well, why is this important? Well, think about it. If someone has a physical issue, limitation, or concern, what good does it do to tell someone, right? Automatically, you think in your head that people are going to judge you, they're going to treat you a certain type of way, or they're going to start being extremely nice to you to try to help soften, the blow of whatever it is you're dealing with. But at the same time, you're fighting with it internally and you don't know how to deal with it externally. So think about it like this. Of course, people say, chivalry isn't dead. And people open doors for folks all the time. So imagine you're opening the door for an elderly person that was just given a cane or just given a walker 15 minutes before you open the door. All their life, they've lived independently, and now all of a sudden they need something to assist them with walking. You may get a smile because they say, you know what, this person's being really, really nice. Or you may get a frown, and that frown's not necessarily for you. It's probably for the fact that they are coming to grips with what they'll have to live with for the rest of their life. So we can't see invisible scars, but at every chance you get, be kind. Because even though they may not receive it necessarily the way that you meant to give it, if you're opening the door for that person that is fighting internally, open the door and smile anyway. Don't just let the door slam in somebody's face because now on a seesaw trying to figure out, well, do I open it? Do I let it go? Do I open it? Do I close it? No, be kind. Choose to be compassionate because you can't look at a person and tell what their invisible scars are. For instance, when people who know me look at me and see me, they always see me with a smile on my face. Well, what does this smile actually mean? But before I get into that, today was a day that I go back to the doctor and talk to her about what the steps are going forward with the radioactive iodine or the chemo or having to have a PET scan. But we're not going to talk about that today. I want to focus more on the invisible scars because I know that God has been so good to me. I could have laid down to have the surgery and not woken up ever again. My parents, both over 75 years old, in good health, in their right mind. I have both my brother and sister. I only have one brother, one sister. And I have nieces and a nephew. Life is great from that perspective. But I do have invisible scars. And when I talk to my friends about it and they've been listening to the podcast and they have been supporting me, what they've said is they've seen, a change in me, a positive change because I'm able to speak and let some of these things go, that I've been dealing with. And they believe it's largely because I was given another chance. Because I told them how I felt going into surgery. I was sitting there, trying to be strong, trying to tell my parents that, it's 50-50. I got to skate down the middle if I'm going to make it. I was saying it to them, but I was saying it more to me because I know what God can do. And I know that He already had a plan for my life. And the only way I could live this plan out was if I lived. But He didn't say how I would live this plan. For instance, cancer was a part of the plan. So if I had surgery and they came in and said, okay, she had a stroke, she's not, functioning like normal, I might have lived, but I wouldn't have had full function and activity of my brain and my body. But God chose not to do it that way. So with Him giving me these chances, I'm trying to help other people to get to the better side of their life, to be able to speak life, to be able to speak about the things that hurt them. to be able to talk about the illnesses that they have so they can get help. Because when you suffer in silence, you start to die inside. So that's why today I'm dedicating this episode to grief. Why? Everyone at some point in their life have experienced grief. For instance, you ever fall in love, that young puppy love, and that person break your heart? Yeah, you were sad, but you eventually got it over it, right? That was the process of grief. Grief is a deep, deep sorrow. Most people associate grief with death, but it happens in so many other forms and things that we don't even really say, it was grief. It was the process of grieving that helped me get through this. For instance, when you lose a job, say you worked extremely hard and you did all you could, to keep this job, and then they just casually walk in one day and say, you know what, you've been a great employee. Here is your severance package. Good luck on the next stage in your life. Or hey, they didn't give you a severance package. You showed up at the building and outside there was a sign on the door that said closed permanently. At that moment, you had to decide what you were going to do. Some people chose suicide. Some people went crazy. Some people resorted to illegal activity. And some people say, you know what, God, this is a door that's opening for me to try something different. So all those things go through your mind when you're grieving. So let me take you a walk down memory lane so I can tell you how I've experienced and how I've handled grief. So let's talk about one thing that truly resonates with me, and that's family. And I always talk about how I'm grateful, for the support system that I have and the fact that God has blessed my parents with long life and good health. And I have a loving brother, sister, nieces, nephew, cousins, uncles, very large extended family that is loving and all about family. Well, what happens when you try to start your own? Well, back in 2014, I tried that. I was married for less than 4 years. I married when I was 37 years old. And it was like what I thought a dream come true. I was walking along the road, doing some community service with my sorority, and I was discovered by a handsome man. Well, I, was just kind of going through the motions. I'm thinking I'm sweaty. My hair is not, how it should be. I don't look my very best. And still, this man was pursuing me. And that was something, back then that I thought was really important. And from that day that we met, we were inseparable. Met him in March and married him in October of the same year. Well, everything appeared to be, fine. I understood, up front we had discussions about, some issues that he had and some things that we needed to work on together to help him to grow. The main issue was with finances. And, I was really good with that sort of thing. So that wasn't an issue for me. But then I understood that he had some other things that were going on, in his mind. And I won't, really share those things because even though, we're divorced, I don't want to disrespect him as a person. And I still communicate, with his children, and I love them dearly. If you hear the theme song that plays, those are two of his daughters. And they have beautiful voices as well as beautiful spirits. And I love them from here to infinity. And I'd never do anything, to hurt them. So I will speak respectfully as I do this podcast. So, you remember when Facebook didn't have a like notification system? So you get these message requests in the background. All right. So I was talking to a friend of mine and I told her, I was like, I've been praying because something just does not feel right in my spirit. Something is wrong. I was like, I don't know what it is because I worked out of town. I was on an airplane Monday morning and flying back on a red eye Friday night. And Saturday, Sunday, I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with him because he was working, on the weekend, different events, things of that nature. So I thought. All right. Fast forward, we're maybe a year in, and I get a call from this lady. And I don't know the lady, I don't know how she got my number or anything, but it wasn't my personal number that she called. It was my job. And the administrative assistant at that job was a really good friend of mine. And we're still friends to this day. She, clicks over, calls me and says, hey, it's some lady, calling you, but she doesn't know you because she called you by your married name, not by the name that we call you at work. So I don't think anything of it. I, say, go ahead, send her through. So I answer the call and the lady is all irate and I don't know her. I don't know her voice. I don't know the number. None of this stuff. And she's telling me, I'm stupid, I'm dumb for dealing with a man that has all these kids, that's doing all these different things behind my back, and if I should leave him alone. And if I'm just that dumb and stupid, she was going to come up there to my place of employment and she was going to do something to me. So I thought that was kind of funny. Like, lady, why would you come up here, just to either A, have your feelings hurt or have to have an ambulance call for you? Because I take disrespect, very, very, very strongly. That's not something that I look at lightly. Now, I didn't threaten her or anything of that nature. Well, anyway, fast forward, I got home and he says to me, one of your friends, threatened one of my friends. So at that moment, I said, you know what? That feeling that I was having, I need to turn into a detective and figure out what's going on. So one night, the storms were coming through and he explained to me, if my phone rings and I don't answer the phone, you have to answer for me because if I don't answer for what they call a SWIFT plan, then I'll be reprimanded for it. So, all right, fine. So that particular night, the phone rang. Well, when it rang, I went to answer it. As soon as I did, I looked down and it's a picture of a naked lady. And I'm like, what married man has a screenshot of a naked lady on his phone, and why is she calling him at 3 a.m.? So then I started thinking, I said, you know what, 3 a.m., that's about the time I'm usually in the shower, getting ready for me to get in my car, shower, get in the car, go to the airport, and then be gone for the week. So I said, let me see. And that's when the iPhones, if you answer the phone, it would just go ahead and open. Well, when it did, I went in there and I just started copying messages and I started recording the different messages and things that people were leaving to him. So at this moment, I was heartbroken because here I was doing everything I thought I needed to do, could do, wanted to do, was going above and beyond, trying to do everything that a good wife should do. And here it is, it's at least 5, 6 people that I got information off of. All right, so then I went to counseling. And I talked to the counselor, told her about everything that I saw and everything that I found. And she asked me if I could forgive him. So at the time, I was like, yeah, I think I can forgive him, but I don't really want to. So because when I was leaving on Monday, I was faithful to him. I didn't call anybody. I didn't go out with anybody. What I would do is I would leave work. I would go to a restaurant, order my food to go to my room, and then try to call him to talk to him while I had my dinner. I had made it where I was unavailable to anyone else because I figured that's the same thing he was doing for me. So then I'm on Facebook while I'm on my next trip because therapist tells me, you should pray about this, you should think about this, you should think about that. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So on my next trip, I'm looking on Facebook and there were, I mean, ridiculous amounts of messages where he's asking women, can he come see them? He's asking, can he do certain things to them? And I made sure I made copies of all of this stuff because I never wanted it to be said that I was the one that was doing something crazy. Because, there's always two sides to a story. That's all well and good. But whatever you have to say about me, that's fine. But I made sure I had all the evidence that I needed because this was too much. We hadn't been married a solid 2 years, and I'm looking at all this stuff. But then I go into my messages, and I see message requests from all kinds of women calling me names, saying I must be desperate, I must be dumb, I must be all these things to marry a man who was cheating with their sister, or he was doing this and he was doing that, and y'all are getting married on this day, you're getting married at this place. And they were telling me about my house, and it was ridiculous. So I knew then, that I couldn't do that. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I had no peace in my home because outside of him, doing this with all these different women, he was becoming increasingly angry and physically violent. And I didn't understand that because I'm like, how do you have daughters that you say you love and you would harm a woman? That made no sense to me. But then there were some other things, like I said, in his history, in his past, that caused him to be this way that he needed to be healed from. I just say that. I'm not saying that it's justified. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that on his perspective, he had some things that he needed to heal from. Now, I didn't take that part either. I was like, nope. So you got cheating and then you got physically abusive. Then the financial side of it was much worse, than I thought. Just know that I lost a great deal in trying to help him. And then in the background, everything that I thought that I had saved, somehow he was getting into that as well. So that's a different story. So I've had several levels of grief within my marriage. First, it was grieving the fact of infidelity. I kept wondering, what is it about me? What is it that's causing him to do this? Because when he met me, he was saying I was everything that he ever wanted, everything that he ever looked for, everything that he ever desired. But then a week after we married, he came in the closet and was fussing and screaming and yelling about a Facebook post I made. He was trying to say that the Facebook post was directed at someone that he potentially had a child with. And it was like, I don't know her. Why would I, take that time to do that? That is not my deal. I'm not the type of person that goes to Facebook, to vent about people. If I have a problem with a person, my friends, my family would tell you, I have no problem with coming to you to speak to you directly about it. Because it's so much easier to discuss something as adults rather than throw your trash and your dirty laundry and everything on Facebook for people to do whatever they do with it, right? So at this point, I am suffering in silence because here I am saying, this is the first time I've been married, and this is the choice that I made. My parents have been married since 1970. They've been through a whole lot of different things. They've worked through all of it, and they continue to stand. But never once, never once did my father raise his hand to my mother. Never once did I ever see or hear of infidelity growing up as a child. None of that. My father worked hard. My mom stayed in the home, and she raised us. I did not see any of what I saw in my home, in my marriage. So it was at that point I was saying to myself, I failed. It's like I had this great example to look at growing up, and I failed. I had friends whose parents had divorced, and they were married to people now, and now they've been married 20 plus years. And it's all because of the choices that they made. So I thought. It has a lot to do with compromise. It has a lot to do with being able to find your voice. I lost my voice when I was married. I wanted to be a people pleaser. I wanted everything to be right. So I was grieving myself. I lost my identity. So I grieve my identity. So in all of that, we both went to counseling together. But I just couldn't get past all the things that he continued to do. Because even after I brought out the things that I found, it continued to go on. So I was like, I can only deal with so much. And once I reached my breaking point, there was absolutely no turning back. No way. So I got my divorce. And when I did, the same time, I wouldn't even say the same time. So the same year, in January of 2018, after working almost 10 years with the company, they came in to me and says, hey, your position has been eliminated. Here's a severance package. So going through all this stuff in my marriage, because I'm not divorced yet. I'm mulling over the process. I'm thinking of all the things in my head. I'm hearing him talk on the phone and tell someone that, oh, she knew this job was coming to an end. She should have worked harder, to find another job. But it was like, wait, I'm paying all the bills. So you're working every day, but you're not helping with anything. It's like, how is that right? How is that fair? How do you get to say that? So I'm hearing that, and all this stuff is just going on, and I'm fighting it all in silence because I say, you know what? I don't want to bring this to my parents. I didn't want to bring it to my brother or my sister, not even to my best friends, because I was convinced that I saw this coming, and I brought this on myself because I thought that I could be God's little helper. That I could change, that I could fix, that I could do all these different things that I had no power to do. So I'm sitting here, January, no job, and I'm like, I just can't take this anymore. I had no peace. When I say I had no peace in my home, I couldn't even get ready to go to church to sing in the choir, because I joined the choir a little bit, later on after being in the church for a while. And I went to go to church one Sunday, and he was like, no, you're going to stay here with me. And as I was going out, to get in the car, he was, kind of physical with me, and I got dirty because the car that I had, it was kind of dirty. I didn't wash it, as much as I should have, or he didn't wash it either. But I got all this stuff on me, so I had to come back in the house, because not only did, he push me in the car, I actually did land on the ground. So I had to go back, change clothes. I went to church, and they were singing this song. And The song was "You Hold My World in Your Hands." And they got to that part where they said, "You won't let go of me. You won't let go. Never let go." And I promise that was one time that I can remember God clearly speaking those words to me. That regardless of what I had done, regardless of what I was going through, regardless of where I was in that moment, I did not have a job. I did not have anything that I thought of in the natural. But I realized I had everything in Him because He would not let go of me. So that Sunday, it was around, I'll say the very end of January, beginning of February of 2018. I got up and I told my story about my job, that is. I didn't reveal anything, about my ex-husband or my soon-to-be ex-husband, I should say. And after church was over with, one of the ladies in the church comes to me and she hugs me. And she tells me that she went through a very similar thing. And she was like, "Send me your resume. I'm going to make a couple of calls for you. And I need you to go to this address on Monday." So I'm sitting here like, okay, I see you, God. I hear you. And I go to the address. I sit down. I talk to the people. And they're a wonderful group of people that work to help children that are in the Black Belt area in Alabama to pursue higher education, to think about entrepreneurship, to kind of know more about what's going on, outside around you. That poverty isn't always the answer, or living a life of lack. That is not the answer. And I had to go in to these schools and talk to these kids about college, about having a job, about entrepreneurship. And they were asking me all questions about me, like, how did you decide you wanted to go into engineering? And once got into engineering, how did you decide you wanted to go into management? What's the maximum amount of people you've managed, and how do you deal with conflict? I mean, these kids were really, really interested, and it helped build me as I was grieving. Because here I was saying, I've been at that job 10 years, and I've been on a plane, off a plane for 4, almost 5 years straight. When I could have been building a family, I could have been building a business, I could have been doing all these things, but I dedicated my life to that job. But guess what? Nobody held a gun to my head to do it. I chose to do that job. And when they chose to let me go, it gave me a freedom like no other. So I work with these kids. I love doing what I was doing, but I still had no peace at home. Every day, it was something. It was like I would come home, I would put on tennis shoes and just walk away from the house because I didn't want to argue. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to just sit there and listen to the craziness that didn't even have to exist, because I was saying to myself, I'm easy to love. I don't argue. I don't fight. I don't do any of this stuff. I try to help. I try to do all these things. But I realized that the same person I was giving him was the same person I was giving to other people. I was kind to him. I was kind to people. I was giving to him. I was giving to people. And he had an issue with jealousy, in a sense. Like, he didn't want me to be as kind and as giving, to people when he had needs that weren't necessarily met. Now, it was almost like I was supposed to be his all in all, like his mother figure, not like a partner, not his helpmate, not someone walking beside him, but someone walking in front of him, leading him, taking him, doing everything. And, I get that. Some people, need that. But I realized I don't have the capacity, for that, especially when I was doing what I was having to do to make ends meet, to pay all the bills, in the house. All right. So then in April, I go and I file for divorce. And I tell them, that I need to make sure that this is done when I'm not in town. But I end up having to have some surgery. And the day before I had the surgery, the guy who was serving the notice had the date wrong. Oh, goodness. So he comes with the paper, he gives it to him. He comes on me, throws the papers at me and says, oh, this is why you was calling me to make me hurry up and come home. And I was like, I didn't call you. I don't know what you're talking about. Because we really weren't speaking like that. We were just kind of existing around each other. There was just so much tension and no peace that I was like, I just can't live like this. And it took him maybe a month or so to finally sign. But as soon as he signed, I had a job offer away from where I was living in this beautiful sunny state of Florida. I took the job. So after taking this job and leaving everything that I had in Alabama behind, I sat down, I thought about it, I said, I had great friends there. I played tennis there. I loved my church because those were some of the kindest, sweetest people that I've ever met. And they still reach out now to see, how things are going for me. And those little country churches, those people hold on to you. And baby, they don't let go. Not especially if you are loving them back. Now, if you trying to run, they might reach out every once in a while to try to bring you back. But if you are in the fold and you're trying to grow, then they right there, covering you, praying for you, trying to help you. So fast forward, I'm down here in Florida. And I made the choice that I didn't really, want to date. I didn't want to get to know anyone, like that really, really soon because I had to heal. But I didn't realize that my healing came from a deep, deep sorrow. Because here I was, now I'm in my 40s and not married, no kids, and it's just me. And I'm like, I want to have a legacy. I want to do all these things, but I know I can still have that, if I do have a child, if that is something that I'm allowed to do. Or I could adopt. I could do all that, to have my own family. But I'm telling you all of this because this process of grief started for me in 2015. This was after I got married. I got married in October 2014, and things started to progressively go downhill in 2015. So from 2015 till about 2022, I've been dealing with grief that I didn't even consider to call it that. Because think about it. I threw myself into work when I got here because I said I didn't want to date. But then at the same time, I didn't nurture that little person inside of me that loves to talk to people, that loves to just be around, like-minded people. And I was just existing, but I wasn't hurting. I was getting back to that point of peace because I know I came home one day and I sat in the middle of the floor and I was just like, thank you, Lord. Thank you for restoring my peace. Thank you for taking this heavy heart and this grief away from me. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for letting me go, for letting me get away, for letting me be free. It was a fight internally. So it left these invisible scars that had me afraid to step out and meet people, really. Now I'm going through the process of, really trying to get there, but it's like now where you go really meet people. Florida's kind of interesting when it comes, to the dating scene and really getting to know folks because it's like, okay, I'm not really in Tampa, but I'm close to Tampa. But there's not a whole lot of events that I would necessarily go to. But then my friend's like, oh, we got to get you outside of the box because she is is single as well. She recently divorced, and we said, we just need to get out. Maybe we'll meet somebody, because we've been watching these podcasts and things, and there's one, that I've taken a love to, not even a liking, but a love, the Dear Future Wifey podcast. And it's like, if it happened for her, it can happen for me. So I'm sitting here looking at all this stuff, and I'm still sitting here thinking, am I done with grieving? I found out that I was not. Because in August, that's when they started, the process with me finding out about that I had thyroid cancer. And you all know, if you've watched the previous podcast, that this is my second round with cancer. So I'm like, I've gotten away from, this failed marriage, and I have finally taken my voice back with this job. I've taken, more time for me. And I'm not, really dragging myself like I was dragging myself, because at the same time I was not well and didn't know I wasn't well. And I wasn't necessarily being treated right either. So I'm sitting here saying, dang, can I get a break? Can I get, something fresh, something new, something good, something great? And I go back to laying in that operating room, and I say, you know what? That was my good. That was my great. That's my second chance. I'm saying second chance with cancer, because the first time they were talking about potentially having to cut my foot off. And I was like, oh no, I was in my 20s then. I was like, I still want to run around and do all these different things, which I know, with technology, you can still do that. But I wanted to do what God gave me. I didn't want to, have to learn to do it another way. And that was just me speaking, and if that had been God's plan for me, then I just would have had to deal with it. But He didn't choose that for me the first time around. So the second time, with the Factor 5 lighting and the other things that were going on, it was like, I could die on the table. So I'm sitting here grieving everything in my life. I'm sitting here on this table saying, am I going to leave my parents here? Because parents should never, ever have to bury their children. But I've seen it more often than not lately, and my heart truly goes out to every parent that's had to bury a child. And then I'm sitting here saying, okay, what if I do wake up, but somebody has to take care of me the rest of my life? I don't want that either. Because I always said that if my parents ever got to a point where they absolutely needed me, then I'm there. But I couldn't be there if I couldn't take care of myself. So I'm a firm believer that God heard my prayer. And He sent me back whole, because He was listening to me. He was saying, this girl is laying here. Wonder if she's going to die. Wonder if she's going to, have a stroke, or if she's going to have some issues. She's wondering all these things. But then she stopped and said, your will be done. And when she said that, I had to adhere, because I know the plans I have for her. So all the things that I was talking about with my therapist here, about the failed marriage, about not having any kids, about not having a business, not doing this, not doing that, I have another chance. So I am working on those invisible scars. I am starting and trying new things to help erase those scars. And if you're anything like me, you've gone through something like this, or you've gone through something in your life that you have to realize that you have to grieve. You can't just keep burying this stuff. Because think about whatever you bury, whether it's a seed or something dead, something grows from it. Now, if it's a seed, it's going to be something great, grand, and wonderful that's growing. But if it's something that's dead and you bury it, it's just going to be smelly, moldy mushrooms. Something very unpleasant. You have to decide what it is you want to do. Do you want to grieve it or do you want to bury it? I suggest that you take a moment to look in your life and say, what is it that's inside of me that's hurting me, that's holding me down? And when you're able to identify that, talk to someone. Find a therapist. They're trained to do that. Think about it like this. If you're my age and you haven't fixed it yet, 9 times out of 10, you need some help fixing it because you've been with you all your life and you know what you can and you can't stand. But sometimes you need to be educated. Sometimes you need to be shown a different way. Because if you keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result, you know that's insanity. In order to get something that you never had, you got to do something that you never done. So I'm asking you to do something you've never done to help yourself get through this grief. Now, no one can tell you how to grieve. Your grieving process comes from within. For instance, I can't tell you if you've lost a child, 2 months from now you should be fine. That's crazy. That's ludicrous. That child could have been with you for years or minutes, but you grew to love them. You had a connection. Connections don't go away that quick. I'm just saying, identify the grief. Don't suffer in silence. Suffering in silence only makes it worse. So I'm asking that you give your grief words, that you speak it. Even if you need to join a grief support group, I encourage you to do that. One-on-one counseling, do something. Don't just suffer. Because I found out that I'm no longer suffering from this grief. How do I know this? Because my friends are telling me that I'm different. They're saying, oh, you're glowing, you're this, you're that. And I'm sitting here saying, you know what? And I'm not even dating nobody because, that's when people tell you glowing. When you dating somebody, you got somebody special in your life, like that. Someone where you're saying, oh, I'm, engaged or I'm moving. Not just somebody you just dating. It's got to be extremely concrete for that glow, really to start, right? Maybe I could be wrong. Some people glow when they get some special attention, but it's a little different for me, I guess. But I'm just saying this because you have to know, what it is that's causing you to grieve. And you have to know what steps you take to get to the other side. Try something. Because if you never try anything, you're still going to be in the same spot you were in when you started with the grief, right? Let's not do that. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Embracing the Fight. I am your digital creator and host, Erica Lamar. Have an amazing day.